It's your weekly breakaway for fun conversations on pro cycling and so much more. Join us as we go beyond the slipstream. I'm Matt Harper, and together with my brother Justin, we'll do deep-ish dives on bike races, movies, bands, and all manner of shiny pop cultural objects. Oh, and did I mention bike races? We're kind of obsessed. Allez! Hello and welcome to Beyond the Slipstream. I'm Matt and this is my brother Justin, and today in our first segment we'll be building a list of our cycling, let's call them resolutions for 2025. Segment 2 will be Lance Part 2 as we finish up our conversation about the always controversial Mr. Armstrong with a look at his racing comeback and post-racing life and career. For our final segment, it's part 4 of our retrospective look at HBO's The Wire, the groundbreaking police procedural set in Baltimore, Maryland. We're going to focus in on season 4 of the show, which saw the introduction of the school system as a setting and component in the overall examination of various Baltimore institutions and their interactions with the crime world. And as is our wont, we'll finish the show with a ride in the Broom Wagon. Allez! As teams and riders head into 2025, they're bringing a myriad of agendas, goals, hopes, and dreams for a successful season. In our first segment today, we're going to come up with our own list of New Year's resolutions for the pros, and perhaps we'll sprinkle in a few for ourselves along the way. Justin, what is your biggest pro cycling resolution for 2025?
I want to see an American on the podium again. I want to see Matteo Jorgensen podium the Vuelta.
Matteo.
I think he had such a great year last year with, he had a lot of wins early. I feel like if that team is really on point, especially coming out of the tour, hopefully, that I could very easily see them let him, take the lead in the Vuelta. So, I'd love to see an American on the podium again. It was great with Sepp a couple of years ago. I want to see it again.
I love that. And I'm right there with you. Let's see. All right. I'm going to stay with Americans. And for Kristen Faulkner, what I want to see is either a monument or a Tour de France Femme stage. Either way, both would be, of course, wonderful. But she has not won a monument, and she has not won a Tour de France stage. She's won stages in the Giro d'Ange and in the Vuelta Femenina, but no Tour de France. So that would make her a completist. What do they call it? They call it the Triple Crown. That'll make her a pro cycling Triple Crown winner. So that'd be pretty amazing for a rider that you don't hear a lot of talk about. This woman's Palmares, pretty sick. So, go Kristen Faulkner, 2025.
Absolutely. One that might be a little bit more controversial. I'd really like for the UCI to lean a little harder into their yellow and red card system. I feel like they kind of scratched the surface last year, but with all of the crazy wrecks that happened in the sprints and, guys, the not keeping their lines, I think it's important that they, having a little bit more control and a little bit more discipline for these dangerous situations makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Speeds and just pushing the envelope. It's always going to happen. It's going to happen in every sport. Things are always going to get faster. Things are always going to get bigger, and it is up to these governing bodies to be trying to counteract that as much as possible, especially in a situation where, it's already too dangerous. Like, we're already too far, and it will continue to get worse unless somebody does something. And certainly the athletes themselves are not going to do anything because they're invested in faster, stronger, bigger, everything big, more. So, of course, it's on the UCI. And if you want to know my deeper thoughts about safety in sports, you can go back with 2 or 3 episodes and listen to my rant in my Broom Wagon where I went off on that. All right. Let's see. For me, I'm going to go with I'm going to take your boy, Jonas Vingegaard. I want to see Jonas arrive healthy and on form to the Tour de France. The
Big time.
the rest will work itself out because we didn't get that last year, and that's what I want to see. Because as I discussed last week, like I'm over the Pog show. It was majestic to witness last year, but I do not feel like watching Tadej Pogacar run away with the Tour de France this year. So Jonas
I
healthy and on form to the TDF.
I agree. I think that we got just tiny flashes of Jonas last year, and I think a healthy Jonas versus a healthy Pog is a lightning storm waiting to happen. So I, absolutely in on that. Just keep it with Vesma Lisa bike. I'd like to see Sepp Kuss kind of reemerge. If I feel like he was not mentioned barely at all last year, and he was at the forefront of three Grand Tour victories the year before. So as a domestique 2 times, and as the winner of the Vuelta. So I'd love to see Sepp Kuss kind of reemerge with a little bit of dominance as as the number one helper in the peloton.
Yeah, it was a weird season for VLab last year in general, and for Sepp in specific. It was just very sort of blah, and I agree. He excels in helper roles, and I think also he's getting to the point where he sort of functions as a leader as well. And I want to see him back on form in both of those capacities. All right, I'm going to say next year, I want to see Eliza Longer Borghini add to her list of monuments with an LBL or a Lombardia win, which I think she is entirely capable of in both accounts. If she's on her day and her team is strong, there is no reason why she can't win either of those races. And I'm ride or die for Miss Longo Borghini, so let's say an LBL or a Lombardia win.
I like that. I think an LBL win, a Liège-Bastogne-Liège win is absolutely a reachable goal for sure. Ooh, I want Biniam to defend his green jersey. Yeah, big time. That was one of my favorite parts of last year, was watching him win. Yeah, I want to see him defend his green jersey. I just want to see it. He's so electric when he wins. He's got such a great attitude. I think he's great for cycling. So the more wins for Biniam, the better, in my opinion.
Agreed. And also, if he wins a Vuelta stage, he joins the Triple Crown Club for the men, because he's got Giro and Tour wins. So a Vuelta stage would also be huge. I don't know even if they're planning on sending him there. I'm sure he's going to the Tour. But there's certainly no reason a guy like that couldn't still, even if he goes to the Tour and goes all the way through, that he couldn't squeak out a Vuelta win a few weeks later. So I love that. All right. I am going to go next with Charlotta Kool. I am just about as over the Lorena Vibas show as I am the Tadej Pogacar show. She wasn't quite what she was the season before. That team wasn't quite what it was the season before in 2023 as they were in 2024, SD Works. And Charlotta Kool made that pretty apparent with the first 2 stages of the Tour de France, that she won and had the yellow jersey. So, I mean, a pretty career-defining season for her, I would say. But outside of that, she did not do a whole lot last year. I think she had one other win. And
she's fun to watch.
Yeah, she's great. She's really great, and there's no reason why she couldn't get 5 wins in 2025. So 5 wins for Charlotta Kool. What do you got?
I kind of similar. I'd like to see Guy Riolini get a win, any win. preferably in a Grand Tour, but I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah, she is one of those riders it's like, it seems like she's always in the conversation, like when she's racing. You'll
hear her name all day long, but never on the podium.
For sure. So yes, I love that one as well. Let's get Ray Alini a big win this year, preferably. Um, all right, I'm going to take one. This one's a little outside the box, but I'm saying resolution for the United States of America, and that is to get some GD professional bike races on your calendar. It's
Please.
absolute tragedy how these races have just been disappearing. I mean, like in the space of 3 years or something, we lost both the Tour of California and the Tour of Utah. Like they're both week-long tours gone, And last year there was exactly one top level UCI race in the United States. We went to it. That was fun. Uh, the Maryland Cycling Classic. And what happened? 2024. No Maryland Cycling Classic. Absolute shame. Um, so this is just wishful thinking, but I would love to see the United States get some more pro races. I was listening to a cycling podcast this week, and Daniel Freeb on the podcast was speculating about how unbelievably amazing a Grand Tour in the United States would and could be. Just imagine the possibilities with the diversity of terrain here. I mean, we have as much geographical diversity as all of Europe, let alone
Hmm.
just France or just Spain or just Italy. I mean, a grand tour in the United States would be unreal. Don't think we'll see it in our lifetime, but one can dream.
Yeah, I mean, you almost would say you'd have to do it, at least out west, for the big mountains. But I mean, you could technically do it out east and be in the Smokies. I don't know. There's a lot to be said of. You're right, the geographical diversity and just the iconic scenery that you could use. But
Well, and you could also, I mean, it could go across the United States. Like it doesn't have to be in the West or the East or in the Smokies or in the Rockies or anything. I mean, that's the beauty of the Tour de France is it's got all kinds of different terrain. I mean, you could
mhm.
start on the East Coast and basically run your stages kind of in a, just sort of progressed westward over the course of 3 weeks, and you could probably cover three-quarters of the country at least.
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
It's true.
It'd be
The only thing that I wonder is like how would the transfers work? You know what I mean? Like how far? I wonder how far you could really get it. I mean, obviously, France is not anywhere near the size of the United States, so it's when you think about it, they're kind of going in a circle. Like if if they broke it out linearly like that, could they make it that far and it be feasible? It's a lot of miles,
yeah,
dude.
yeah. Well, wishful thinking. Take one more, and I'll do one more.
All right. Let's see. Which one do I want? Um. Oh, all right. How about Ineos just get in the mix now that they've seemingly got their troublemaker out? All right. Let's see them. Rise back up again. Love to see G. By the way, I'm gonna keep touting that he was an evil guy on the bus. I just like Tom Pidcock, bad, team bus guy. I have no idea. Tom, if you're not a bad team bus guy, please don't hold it against us. I just think it's funny. But no, I really, I love G. I really, this could be G's last year. So I would like to see them, kind of restructure and get some wins. It'd be nice. They are a fun team to watch.
Yeah. You gotta love Ineos. It's the only English team, and they've got obviously a crazy history over the past 10 or 15 years. And yeah, I think a healthy and functioning Ineos is good for the men's pro peloton one way or the other. So I'm with you on that one. All right, to finish it up, I am going to say a resolution for the Beyond the Slipstream podcast, which is to number one, keep on keeping on, keep producing weekly episodes. When we started this thing, I said I wouldn't do it unless you would commit to me for a full year of weekly episodes, and so far so good. We're on track. It's feeling good. And the other one for us this year, I would love to do a live remote from a bike race somehow, some way. We had a brief conversation about this. It's looking like very possibly that we will be attending
Charleston, West
yeah,
Virginia.
Charleston, West Virginia, the U.S. National the U.S. National Championships. So look for that. That's going to be in I think, what did we say? It's
May.
in in May. Yeah,
Yeah.
so right around my birthday, actually. So good chance we're able to do that. All right, well, we're going to leave it there. And when we come back in segment 2, it's Mr. Bad Boy Lance Armstrong. Stay tuned.
Let's start with the questions that people around the world have been waiting for you to answer. And for now, I'd just like a yes or no. Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Yes or no. Was one of those banned substances EPO?
Yes.
Did you ever blood dope or use blood transfusions to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Did you ever use any other banned substances like testosterone, cortisone, or human growth hormone?
Yes.
Yes or no? In all 7 of your Tour de France victories, did you ever take banned substances or blood dope?
Yes.
In your opinion, was it humanly possible to win the Tour de France without doping 7 times in a row?
Not in my opinion.
Last week, we discussed the first part of the Lance Armstrong story, looking at his childhood and career up to his first retirement. Today, we'll consider his comeback and his post-cycling life and career. In many ways, the world seems to have moved on from his controversial downfall, which saw him stripped of his 7 Tour de France titles by the UCI, pro cycling's governing body. His media empire is growing alongside his business and philanthropic ventures, and amongst a certain set of cycling personalities, he is most certainly back in the fold. To start, talk to me about your thoughts on his comeback with Astana and Radio Shack, and then we'll get into all the controversies.
So, the first thing that I think about his comeback is that if he doesn't do it, none of the rest of it happens. If he just stays retired and he stays quiet, he still has 7 Tour de France's. He's not stripped of them, and his legacy stays cemented as, one of the greatest to ever do it. I think his coming back was an FU to everybody, and it solidified the fact that people wanted to take him down. And, I really do think that if he had never come out of retirement, that none of that would have ever come to, it would have never, I'm sure it would have stayed in the background and people would have talked about it, but it would have never became what it became.
I agree, and it's a perfect example of like his whole like hubris and arrogance, the whole fact that he did that, and couldn't leave well enough alone. I think it's still possible that everything kind of comes out because what he did in those first tours, and like it was all there. People knew about it, so it's quite possible, and especially given the fact that what happened to Floyd Landis, because Floyd won the very next year after Lance won his last one, Floyd won, and then like within a year after that, Floyd was stripped of his title and pissed off, and that's kind of when the ball got rolling with the Lance stuff. Right at the same time as he's already like plotting his comeback, so it doesn't. I can't say that I agree that it 100% like wouldn't have come out. I think it very possibly would have, but I agree.
I don't know that he necessarily would have been stripped of all his titles. I don't know.
I
feel like he thrust himself back into the forefront of the conversation and made everybody deal with the situation, especially with what happened with Floyd. So, I just, like I said, I think that one of his biggest mistakes at that point was trying to come back or coming back. And again, I think you're right. It's complete ego, because in the 30 for 30, he was like, if this guy's doing it, I'm going to come do it. If this is who's going to win, I could beat these guys. Like, it's such ego. There's massive amounts of ego that it takes to decide to come back for that.
Yeah, and we hear all the time people saying, well, the transcendent athletes like that, they have to have that kind of ego. Like, some of these, you can't achieve on that kind of a level without being, a monster or an egotist or whatever. But I really feel like Lance Armstrong took that whole thing to like a much higher level. It's insane. So I went back and watched this documentary. I'd seen it before. It's called Stop at Nothing, the Lance Armstrong story. You can find it on YouTube. We'll put a link in the show notes. And it just brought it all home for me. And this is the thing I've been waiting to say about Lance Armstrong for the past couple of weeks now that he's been on our radar is like, I'm done with him. I can't stand that dude. I really can't. Like, as we discussed last week, he was my portal into the sport of pro cycling. I'll admit that to anybody who wants to ask. I was a super fan for several years there. But you watch that movie and you'll understand that this guy is a absolute piece of trash from top to bottom. Like, the way he went after the Andrews is disgusting. The things that he said about Greg LeMond are disgusting, and it's all there. I mean, he said it recorded. There's so much footage of him sitting there in interviews and press conferences talking about, Lance, what did you think of Greg LeMond? What Greg LeMond said, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know. I mean, that guy's got a history of drug use and blah, blah, blah. It's just drug abuse. I think he's a drug addict or something. It's just like, dude, you're just such a liar. And my thought on Lance Armstrong right now is I just don't care. I see his career, he's got his podcast and he's done hundreds of episodes and people are talking to him and stuff. And I'm just not interested. I don't care about his outlook on the Tour de France. I don't need his analysis. I feel like over the, past decade or so that I've really been deep into pro cycling, following pro cycling, I haven't needed a bit of it, Lance Armstrong, and I've been just fine. I already have all my guys that I like to listen to. I already have all my broadcasters. If I want to watch a live stream, if I want to see a live chat, during a race, I got people that are doing that I would be much more interested in. You know what? I was a huge fan of Woody Allen for years and years and years, but I don't want to watch that guy's movies anymore. Like, I'm done with it. And I see this rehabilitation happening for all kinds of bad people in this day and age. And I think it's only going to be worse with like the new administration that's coming in. And I just, I don't want to see another Woody Allen movie. And I don't want to hear another word out of Lance Armstrong's stupid effing mouth. Thank you for giving me some time to rant here too, because I've taken a lot of shit over the years. It's like anytime I mention to someone, no, I'm a big fan of pro cycling, what's the next word out of anybody's mouth? Lance Armstrong and doping. Yeah. And doping.
So I'm at odds. I'm at odds with how I feel because obviously I don't have the sense of betrayal that a lot of people do because I wasn't into cycling during the run. So my take on things is a little bit different. I do believe in forgiveness. If it's true, it's hard for me to say that he is not, being actually contrite, but I feel that everybody deserves a second chance. He's stripped of his victories, but he still won those tours. Like, I don't care what anybody says, he was in a peloton of people that were all doping and his main competition was definitely doping. So it's, I get it. He doesn't have his titles. You stripped him out. He was laid bare in front of the world. And, he did, about a decade of having to essentially be, shunned by the greater world. Does he deserve forgiveness? I think is at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And I don't think that you can discount his contribution to the world. Like, he has, he did all these horrible things in cycling, but he's also done a tremendous amount of good in the world through his charitable organizations. I know that he was kind of, ripped apart from those organizations during the controversy, and they kind of continued on without him. But throughout the controversy and up till it broke, he was very much involved in cancer research, and I guarantee you that he has contributed to, saving many, many lives. So it's hard for me to say that he doesn't deserve some amount of forgiveness. Do we need him as a pundit? I don't know. I don't know that his takes are as great as others. I do find him entertaining. I find his interaction with George Hincapie and Brunel to be, very. I do find, especially when the three of them are together with other people, I do find their commentary as a group to be pretty good, because they do have some really good insights, and they do have a lot of friends in pro cycling, so they get some really good interviews. They get some really good grabs that way, as far as the people that they talk to and their guests. But do I feel like NBC should have him as part of their broadcast package for the Tour de France? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. His whole rehabilitation is just so completely annoying to me. I really would love to hear what your thought is after you watch that documentary, because let me tell you something, a few things about this guy. Okay, he found out about Dr. Ferrari like around the same time that he won the world championship. Like it was all starting to happen then, and he heard that this guy Ferrari was the guy. Like he had the good stuff, and like if you really want to hit the next level, you gotta find him. And he went and he sought that guy out straight up. Like, I need to get myself doped. And he knew that it was illegal. He knew it was illegal the entire time. He was always like super evasive. I looked online. There does not exist a single photograph of Lance Armstrong and Dr. Ferrari together, and they had a relationship that lasted like close to a decade or something like that.
Definitely longer than that, because I think he was still involved in training with them when he came back.
Yeah. So
that's like 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, he was in deep, and then someone speculates that there is a good chance that his cancer had to do with all of these chemicals that he was putting in his system. So, he gets all this street cred from the world because he survived cancer. Is the cancer survivor Lance Armstrong? It's like, well, the only reason you got cancer is because you were doping, and then you turned it into this thing to make you like the world's hero. He is just the worst. I mean, like,
for all intents and purposes, Nike made him into the world's hero. I mean, if it isn't for Nike and Live Strong and the bracelets, that all doesn't go nuts. And as smart of a guy as Lance is, I don't think that Lance came up with the yellow bracelets.
Oh, I'm sure some marketing person came up with that. Of course,
Nike thought they were going to sell 5 million of them. They sold 80. You know what I mean? It's
right. Well,
yeah.
but also that also just kind of illustrates another point, which is, I don't think Lance Armstrong was ever in it to help cancer survivors. Lance Armstrong is only in it to help Lance Armstrong. I believe that has always been the case, and I believe that is still the case. I do not think this guy is a concern for the cancer survivors of the world and stuff like that. He is concerned for himself. I mean, you see some of these interviews that he gives before he finally makes the admission, like when he's like, blah, blah, blah. What about this secret? Da, 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 da. And he's like, oh, we have the oldest secret in the world, hard work. And it's like, no, you're a liar. Like, he just lied and lied and lied. He's psychotic. He reached out to some guy to become the like the CEO of his foundation when the foundation was like really starting to pick up. And this guy happened to be friends with Lamont. So Lance reaches out to him and says, hey, come run my foundation. Guy calls Lamont, hey man, I got Lance Armstrong asking me to run his foundation. Like, what do you think? Lamont was like, don't touch that with the 10-foot pole, man. Don't do it. That's not going to be good news. And he's like, are you sure? He goes, I'd turn and run the other way. And he goes, well, I at least want to talk to Lance and see what he has to say, give him a shot to make his pitch. So he calls Lance and he says to him, Lance, is there anything that could come out that could endanger the foundation or that can hurt me professionally and my reputation? Lance looked him dead in the eyes and said, there is nothing that could possibly happen. Get on board. We're going to the moon. And 5 years later, this guy, like, it's unbelievable. Like, I can't, I don't need him. I don't want him. If I never hear another word out of that guy's mouth, honestly, I really could care less. I can't even, like, I see his face on that NBC, that Peacock show or whatever. He's got the Move or something like that with his stupid hat turned backwards. And I'm just like, whatever, bro. I'm over it. I don't need him.
Well, here.
I've said my piece.
Lance, if any of you or your people end up seeing this, beyondtheslipstream@gmail.com. We'd love to have an interview with you.
Yeah, come on. We'll talk, buddy. So
you will get both sides, because you've got one guy that wants to forgive and one that does not want to forget. So
okay,
on that,
forgive him. That's fine. He can be forgiven or whatever, sure. But I don't need him in my life. And Johan Brunel, you can come on too, buddy, because you're just as big of a piece of crap as Lance Armstrong is. Like, I don't know about Hincappy or whatever, but it just the whole thing just seems like a stupid boys club. And why don't you go hang out with Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan, and you guys can all be like a part of your boys club. And no thanks. I got plenty of cycling media that I can hang out with.
Hot takes on Beyond the Slipstream. On that note, we'll be right back.
Yeah. Season 4 of HBO's The Wire saw the show draw yet another Baltimore institution into the scene, this time highlighting the school systems in Baltimore and following a group of school children as they deal with navigating life amongst peers, the education system, and the world of crime that they can't seem to avoid. As always, the show does an amazing job of making these characters feel lifelike and real, and audiences really got invested in their stories. And of course, the creators of the show effortlessly folded these new characters and stories into the overall narrative to continue to broaden out the perspective in this fascinating procedural. Justin, who was your favorite? Namond, Randy, Duquan, or Michael?
I think it would be easy to say Namond or Duquan, or even Michael. So, but after rewatching, I've been sick this week, so I've watched a lot of season 4. Randy, what a crazy little character arc for Randy, man. Like that
Randy.
kid, he's just a hustler. He's like a good kid, and does the right thing in a couple of places, and it just backfires on him. The culture that he lives in does not respect that at all, and it just completely backfires on him. He gets labeled as a snitch, and the rest of the season is just like him just getting just beat and beat and beat over and over again because he did the right thing in this one situation. I also found out, I don't know if you realize this about Randy, his last name is Wagstaff. Do you know who else is named Wagstaff?
Yeah, who else? Who's the other Wagstaff?
One Cheese Wagstaff.
That's right.
And I did look up that David Simon did confirm that Cheese is Randy's biological father. It is not connected in the show, but David Simon said, yes, in fact, Randy is Cheese Wagstaff's biological son. So Prop Joe would be Randy's great uncle.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting, right? Wow. But yes, I'm going to choose Randy. How about you? Which one would you choose?
Hard to say from that group. I mean, which one do I sort of like the best? I guess Namond. I mean, he's just this great, good kid on the inside that wants to be hard, but knows that he's not. And I love the way Bunny Colvin becomes his guardian, and
How about Namond's mom?
Oh God, insane.
Just the way that she treats him, and the way that she's just you need to go out and be a dope dealer like your daddy. You need to be in these streets, man. I do like the turn at the end of the season when Bunny goes and sees Weebay in jail and is like, your son could be something. He doesn't have to be a street gangbanger. And the kind of the juxtaposition of that scene versus the scene that he has with Namond's mother in the prison when he's like, you're going to let that boy go. You know what I mean? And just very, very interesting. It makes me like Weebay even more than I already did. I already loved that character, but the fact that in that moment, he chose to be a good father and go, you know what, if my blood can be something better than this, look, what's it doing for me? Look at me. I'm in jail. Like, what does all this street cred give me? All right, I'm stuck here. I don't want that for him, and it wasn't for him.
Yeah. Another just shining example of how quality the writing on that show is, and the character development. Just there's just so much depth there, and that's a killer turn. I mean, then you've got the other two of the foursome there. So you got Duquan and
the tragic story of Duquan.
And also of Michael. I mean, those two in a way they're like linked together. You know, Michael is sort of like Duquan's, you know, guardian or caretaker or whatever, and you know, come hell or high water, like Duquan is sort of hitched to Michael, and you know, when Michael makes his descent, so does Duquan in his own way, and it's so sad too, because he's got such a chance there with Mr. Perez, you know, and you know, he just could have gone.
Oh, that scene when they're like Duquan's got to go up to high school, and he's like, and you're just, you know, that everybody realizes they're like, if this, you know, once this happens, like this good streak that he's on is going to be done, because it's going to be so much harder for him. And then, you know, and then you juxtapose that, like right at that point in the season, like his parents get evicted and they're just gone, you know, and you know, it just shows you how you know how bad drug addiction and alcoholism can be, you know, on kids. And you know, I mean, you could see that too with Michael and his mom, and that whole scene, and how, you know, abuse literally is the catalyst to push Michael into, you know, this to being, you know, a hardcore gangster. I mean, the fact that, you know, Marlowe and especially Chris Partlow, you know, kind of are essentially grooming him. They're just grooming him to be a gangster. I mean, it's grooming in a completely different way. But like, you know, all it takes is that one moment of like, I want to get rid of Bug's dad. I want him out of my life, and them being like, oh, we'll take care of that for you, you know. And then look at like, sorry, go ahead.
But then the implicit, you know, transaction there is, yeah, but then we got you. Yes. Yeah, we'll take care of that, but then we got you. You know,
how about this? How about the scene where Chris beats his dad? I mean, it's like very visceral, and you know, obviously, you know, there's
so brutal.
There's obvious undertones of like some sort of sexual abuse between them, right? Like between Michael and Bug's father.
Yeah, but then also I was reading somewhere that Chris says something about abuse that sort of seems to indicate that he too was a victim of
abused. Yes. You know,
and
I think that's one of the reasons why Chris connects with Michael so much, is I think that they share in that abuse, you know, or being abused, I should say.
And Marlowe can see it, you know. Marlowe can see things in people. That's one of the sort of like very subtle characteristics of Marlowe that makes him such an interesting, compelling character. Is he just seems to know what's going on. He can see right through all the guys in the co-op. He sees right through the whole cop. Field. Yeah, and he's just so low key. And I also think it's kind of interesting how Marlowe, he's got that scar on his face as well. It's like an interesting parallel with him and with what's his name, Omar. You know, Omar with his scar as well. Yeah, and Michael's just, his whole arc is fall from grace. I mean, he is so great, man. When you see him in the beginning of that season, the way he interacts with the other kids and his little brother and stuff, he's just like such a good guy, man. He could have been so much, you know. Cuddy sees it in him. The show always dishes up these dualities, like, you know, you can go one way or you can go the other way, and you know, people, you look at Michael and you look at Naaman. Both of those kids, people saw something in them. They went after them, and one of them made one choice and went one way, and one made a choice and went the other way. And the consequences, you know, could not be more.
There's that great scene with Naaman and Michael after that kid stole the package off of Naaman, and Mike was like, "You got to beat his ass. You got to make an example of him." Like, you could just see the difference, the juxtaposition in the hardness between the two of them right there in that moment, and you could see that that's where the paths like diverged, and one was going to go the one way, and one was going to go the other way. Real quick, because I do want to talk a little bit about the political side before we finish up. But I want to say the scene with the nail gun in the store, like
incredible.
When Snoop is buying that nail gun. The interplay between her and the guy in the shop is so good.
And you catch yourself, being just like so delighted by this like cute little interaction, but the underlying, reality
Darkness
of
it.
what is happening in that scene. Yes, so dark. But that character, incredible, and she's famously like a non-professional actor, or was at the time, and sort of got a career based off of this thing because she was just so incredibly realistic. They do such a good job with all of the story arcs that are happening. Like, they just get such good turns in season 4. Bubbles has moved on to this kid Sherrod, and that whole thing with Bubbles and what's happening. Oh, that reminds me of another point. There are many instances in the show, and especially in this season, where talking to the cops just can lead to bad
backfires.
Things. Yeah, because you've got, Bodie. God, poor Bodie. He talks to McNulty. Boom, they take him out.
Big Kev, same thing. Talks to the cops, gets killed.
Right, and little Randy talks to a cop, takes an ass beating. Bubbles, Bubbles is the CI, and yeah, it's an interesting point that they do a good job of illustrating. Like, you talk to the bitches and snitches get stitches.
It's true. One of the things that I really enjoyed when I was rewatching it this week was how when Carcetti becomes mayor. And he has that one scene where he's like, all right, look, I got to kick these guys into gear. And he goes to the public works guy, and he's like, I passed a park bench or something, or a park on the way to thing. It was broken. Go figure it out. Oh, there's an abandoned car. I need you to get it. And he's real vague with them. And so they're just like out there, like all trying to do a bunch of, stuff. And it just shows you, it's like, I think they do such a good job of showing you how kind of wasteful government can be and how ineffective government can be. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it felt like throughout the whole season, it's like they put their finger in one hole and two more pop out. And it's just like, it's funny because it's like, okay, this is what corruption does. This is what corrupt government, this is what happens. When people start lining their pockets with government money and other people's money to make things happen, this is what happens. You have ineffective government. You have lackluster education. You have very little control over certain things, and everything is kind of like a shell game, especially with the education system. And I think that I have friends that are teachers, and they have absolutely like that. Teaching to the test is a thing. You know what I mean? It is an absolute thing in this country, and it's really, really sad. And the fact that like all of that is woven so well into this show, it's remarkable. And it's like even now, 20 years later, the social commentary is still as effective as it was then.
100%. I also really like in that whole political side of it in that season. Like all the maneuvering, like Burrell and Rawls, and like everybody's like creating alliances and covering their ass and making moves and stuff. And there's just like so much politicking that goes on amongst those things. Instead of like policing, God forbid, we actually like focus on the work. And it's like, nah, let me focus on how I can keep my job, how I can keep my power, and what's so so beautiful about it is it's the same thing that's happening within the criminal organizations. Everybody's jockeying for position, creating alliances, and watching Stringer get all frustrated with the political guys and stuff because they won't give him the clout that he so desperately wants, because he's a freaking gangster, and seeing his frustration. I know that was in the last.
And how funny is it that the voice of reason throughout the season about the police side of things is Jimmy McNulty. Jimmy McNulty is like, this makes no sense. Why are we doing this? And like, it's funny too, because like he's being a beat, he's decided to be a beat cop again, and he can't help but be good police. He's like helping that guy solve those burglaries, and he's like, here, look, there's a pattern, da 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 da, and he essentially makes the collar for that guy. He's like, go park yourself outside of one of these churches. You're probably gonna find them. And he's like, bam, picks up the arrest, and he realizes like he needs to go back to being murder police.
Yeah, speaking of that, like arrest, like I just loved seeing Herc get fired. That guy's just like he's such a Lance Armstrong. That guy.
He was like, and like, talk about a guy that never follows through with what he says. I mean that was Herc's downfall. Herc's downfall was he was all promise and no deliver.
Yeah, and I mean they give him half a chance to get back when he gets that camera and he sets it up to film Marlowe, and like him and Sindor are like creating their own little thing, and you're like, okay, all right, Herc, you go, man. Like, all right, come on back, like get some shit done. And then like the camera gets lost, and he just turns into a complete piece of crap again, and he just becomes completely obsessed with finding that camera to the destruction of anybody in his path, and
but it catches up to him in the end.
Yeah, it's nice. It's
and ironically, it comes off of that like crazy scene where Burrell brings in that like manual into Carcetti's office, and he's like, if you can't find a reason to fire him in here, you're not doing your job. You know what I mean? And like that's exactly what ends up getting him. They end up getting him on a essentially a technicality because they figure out his little cover up. He had almost got away with it, and then they ended up getting him in the end with it.
Yep. Well, it is so good. We could talk about it for another hour. We're gonna do season 5 next week, and the week after that, we're gonna do some summarizing. So, stay tuned to hear more of that in the next couple of weeks. And with that, we will conclude this segment, and we'll see you after the break in the Broom Wagon. We are back, and we're going to take a ride in the Broom Wagon. Justin, what do you want to talk about this week?
So I've been sick all week, so I've been in bed. Pretty much laying down all week, and I did have a chance to pick up a couple of movies, but I randomly fell across a movie yesterday that I had never heard of, and I had never seen, obviously, and it's called 999. Okay, I want to read you this cast. This movie is from 2016. All right, and have you heard of this movie by the way? Okay, listen to this cast: Casey Affleck, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Anthony Mackie, Aaron Paul, Woody Harrelson, Kate Winslet, Gal Gadot, Norman Reedus, Michael Kenneth Williams, Clifton Collins Jr. Okay, crazy cast. All right, crazy cast.
Did you mean to say Chiwetel Ejiofor?
Chiwetel Ejiofor is how you pronounce his name, actually. I'm pretty sure.
No, well, maybe we're thinking of a different actor.
No, we're definitely thinking of the same actor.
No, pretty sure his name is pronounced Chiwetel Ejiofor. But anyway,
maybe it is. Agree to disagree on this one. Anyway, so this movie is about corrupt cops and bank robbers, or like robbery, guys, but they're like mixed in with the police, and there's some former cops, there's some cops, and Kate Winslet plays a Russian Jewish mafia queen pin. This thing is wild. It's all over the place. It's insane action. it was really good. I found myself completely entertained throughout the entire thing. And I'd never heard of it. It's an 8-year-old or 9-year-old movie that I've absolutely never heard of. And it was really, really good. If you're into like an action crime movie in the vein of like a Heat, or I'm trying to think of something else. Like what's the Ben Affleck movie with the Town, like that. Like if you're into that type of movie, like go watch 999. Really, really good. Amazing cast. Great acting. It does not disappoint. And apparently nobody heard of it.
Well, I think that there are many, many movies out there, if you did a little digging around, that have these crazy A-list casts that literally went nowhere, that no one's ever, I don't think that is a one-off situation. I think there are many movies like that get made that for whatever reason the distribution is weird, or they come out at the wrong time of year, or they're just not good and they get panned and they never see the light of day. Or they never get any kind of acclaim. But yeah, I'll have to check it out. 999.
It's like I'm not saying it's the best movie ever, but it's a good popcorn movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, for my Broom Wagon segment, I'm going to take another one of the I'm given to do now and again, which is I want to recommend getting yourself into spaces that you are, I don't want to say uncomfortable with, but that are unfamiliar to you. So here's what I mean. So last night, I did a private bartending gig, as I was telling you about before we started today. And my clients on this one are African American, and 100% of the people that came to this party were black. I was the only white guy there. And, for a guy like me, that does not happen very often, that I am the only white guy. Probably only happens once a year when I do a party for these people. But it is a perspective that I guarantee you every single person that was there at that party last night, except for me, has had that experience many, many times in their life, being the only black person in an all white room. And I think it is good for the soul to put yourself into situations like that. To get more perspective, at the risk of sounding like, oh, you should do, racial tourism or something like that. That's not what I'm getting at. But, like I took mom out to lunch a couple of times. We went to an Ethiopian restaurant, and we were the only two white people in there. And it was super cool. Number one, it was great being in there, being the only two white people, because it was very obvious that this is the good Ethiopian spot, because all the Ethiopians are in here having lunch. The place is jamming on a Monday lunch. There's a ton of people in there, so it's great food, but cool to be in that space. Same thing happens when we just, at certain other restaurants we've gone to. We went to a pupusa place, and trust me when I say we were definitely the only Americans in there, or white people in there. It was all Latinos. And I've never had any kind of negative experience in those situations, but it's good. It's good for folks to get out there and put yourself into,
getting out of your comfort zones is
unfamiliar.
Getting out of your comfort zone is very good. I switched jobs this year, and that was very much getting outside of my comfort zone. And one of the better people that gave me advice, he asked me, he goes, "Are you comfortable?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Then it's probably time to go." And I was like, damn. I will also say one of my best experiences when I was in Houston, a year or two ago, I was down in Houston on a training, and we had a night where like the trainers were going to take us out to dinner, and they wanted to take us to this place called Papados, which is like basically like Houston's version of like Ruby Tuesdays. It's like a local chain kind of, it's like maybe Clyde's, but probably Clyde's is a better Clyde's in the DC area is maybe a better
Right.
example. But I was like, I have no interest in that, so I opted to go do something different, and we ended up. The first place that we wanted to go was closed. We ended up going to it later, but I asked the employees from the place that was closed, because the place that I wanted to go was a barbecue place. It was closed. The lady was walking out of it. She's like, "Oh no, they're making sausage in there. Like, we're closed." And I asked her, I was like, "If you were going to go somewhere to eat right now, where would you go to eat?" And she was like, "Oh, I'd go to Mike's Fish House." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, gave us directions, whatever. We went in. The only people in there were black and Asian people, and we were the only white people. And it was like very hole in the wall, but like packed. There's tons of people. We got a bunch of catfish and a bunch of other stuff, and rice and beans, and it was amazing. It was the best fried catfish that I've ever had in my life. Like unbelievable. And here is, we were having beers and here a bunch of, because a bunch of people decided to come with me, but we had a table full of guys, and we're just sitting there drinking beers and eating catfish, and outside of our comfort zone in kind of not the best part of Houston. So, but I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
Yeah, I love it. Well, that's going to do it for us for this week. Thank you for sticking around with us here in 2024. It's been a great ride for us so far. This is our 7th episode, and we're all guns blazing. We're moving forward in 2025. I have great hopes for the future of this podcast, and it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm enjoying doing this with you, and I'm wishing you and all of our listeners all the best for 2025.
Yeah, me too.
That will do it for this week. Join us next week for a look at the history of the Women's Tour de France. We'll also do an examination of the legendary late TV show Saturday Night Live, which as we speak is deep into its 50th season. And we'll round things out with our ongoing review of HBO's The Wire with a look at its 5th and final season. Join us for all that and more. Until then, for my brother Justin, I'm Matt Harper. Thanks for joining us on another ride beyond the slipstream. Ale! Beyond the Slipstream is a production of Harperama. Find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please like and subscribe, smash that button, leave a 5-star review, and most importantly, tell all your friends about us. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Ale!